Okay, in this lesson, what we're going to be working on today, this is going to be one of the first lessons that we do as a class, and it's going to be called the crop drawing. As far as the crop drawing, you should be more than ready to actually approach the crop drawing. It's going to be, of course, about observation. It's going to be about composition, and of course, applying the skill that you already know how, which is the transitioning, the values, applying everything that you need to. As far as everything being, of course, shapes and forms, we have that mentality that anything and everything could be broken down into some kind of shape or form, at least to get to a very, very close proximity as to what we want it to look like. By us, of course, looking and observing, we can kind of make connections with just the use of shapes and forms. As far as, again, this idea of room crop drawing, of course, we say, well, what is a crop? As far as a crop, again, it's basically taking a photograph, anything, and again, you can even use your hands as if, you're kind of, again, this is like, again, a viewfinder. If you're moving this viewfinder around, you get this idea of, what kind of space or what looks more interesting to my eyes. As far as in most cameras, when you guys take your pictures, you have this ability to crop an image by, of course, opening or closing a window within a picture frame. And then, of course, you're able to delete things. You're able to enlarge things according to the quality of the photograph. So with this camera here, with this picture, normally I have everyone within the drawing room go to different destinations within the room, be as close as possible to the source that you're trying to draw. So this drawing is definitely very, very intimate. Intimate meaning that you'll be very, very close, maybe inches away or maybe a foot away from whatever you're trying to draw to be able to absorb all the information that you'll be expected to draw. The reason why you have more information is, again, you're cropping and you're enlarging. So it's not necessarily just that you crop, but also, of course, to scale it up higher and higher. And so you do scale it up higher. This assignment is also going to be about texture. You'll be able to see the texture of metals, the texture of wood, the texture of earth, the texture of concrete, the texture of dirt or dust. All those things will be available because, of course, you're that close. So as far as, again, this semester, again, because of, again, we have to have this separation, I was going to let you guys use your cell phones. And, of course, you can move back to your desk and, I guess at least be a little bit more comfortable there instead of course, feeling like you're too close to someone just because of the time that we live in. But as far as I went throughout my space here within the house, this is a picture of the front door. It has a lot of wear and tear. But as far as me cropping, well, first of all, when I did take the picture, I want to make sure that I have diagonals. The more diagonals you have, the more interesting the perspective is. Because, again, it gets very, very easy, of course, to foresee. Like sometimes when people would draw a doorknob, people would draw a doorknob like this. They go, okay, there's a doorknob and there's a little keyhole. See, he says, like, but that's the way we think, But, again, it's very, very boring. And, of course, when we take a photograph, we probably wouldn't want to see it like that. We want to see something more dynamic. So dynamic is new, it's innovative, it's fresh, and that's what we really want. So different pictures I took one of a light switch, which would be fine, I like this picture a lot. It'd be minimal shading. There's a lot of lightness. There's not a whole lot of darkness. There's some areas of nice contrast way back here. Of course, we all know how to draw the circle. How to shade the sphere. What I like about here is the reflections, the reflective properties of glass. You can see there those little nice highlights. But again, it is very, very round. Some people will say, well, that's kind of weird, hard to draw. But again, you can always use your wrist. You could always do the ellipse. You could do those kinds of things. I like this one because it has like brushed metal kind of a feel to it. And I can definitely see how the shading could be applied very, very well. As far as the crop, I like the crop. Most people would kind of say, well, it looks like something I've seen before. But definitely it is a perfect form in the sense where you can see the lines, again, one after the other, one after the other. But again, we can use the wrists to draw those, again, as symmetrical and parallel as possible, because that's what it details in order for it to come out more correct. As far as the shading, very, very easy to shade. It's very, very easy to see, more so than the glass. The glass seems a little vague. The contrast is very, very low. This to this seems very, very similar. This to this looks very, very similar. There are not very many areas of high contrast. So this one would be kind of tricky for that one reason. As far as this one, same thing. You know, there are a lot of little areas in here that are, you know, this picture was taken a little bit too close. When you do take a picture, you want to make sure that you move your camera forward without actually zooming in. So when you want to expand the image, it will expand more. So in this case here, I went a little bit too close where it went a little bit beyond as close as I could get. I should have backed off maybe ½ an inch and it probably would have focused a little bit better. But this was the one I like mostly because it has the most amount of contrast. I like that brass. I like the reflective qualities and nice textures. I like the chip paint. I like the angle too. I like the way the angle kind of moves into space. I really like that. So this would be my choice as far as making the drawing. I like also the little holes for the screws. And again, the form really shows itself off. And definitely I can get into the shading just a little bit more. So again, imagine if this paper here, I'm recycling paper today. Imagine if this is a paper, as far as the paper itself, it's going to be like that standard size we've been using. So I'm just going to do a little preliminary, just so you can kind of see how this would work. As far as cropping, again, the nice part about it is that you're able to, of course, to actually crop within your phone. So again, if you're able to zoom in a little bit, you say, I want to move it over a little bit. I want to catch a little bit of that because that adds a really nice sense of contrast. And when I look at it, I like the diagonal like this. I like the diagonal like that. I like, of course, the ovals. So when you do look at it, describe it to yourself. You know, use your pencil. Your pencil can be used as a ruler to the eye in the sense where, of course, this is super straight. This is super vertical. But as far as this, I know this is a little bit of a diagonal. I understand that. And I like this, and I see that. When I see this line here, and I compare it to this one, it says, no, it's not quite. It seems like it's tapering in. Tapering meaning it gets smaller as it goes back. So that's a really good observation. That should be very effective to use too. So yeah, when you do, of course, make drawings, you want to make sure when you do start off with a composition, the composition again is the way you arrange your objects. You want to make sure that they're interesting to begin with, and that's of course going to add a lot more to the quality of your work. So again, if I was starting here, again, I was using my wrist, balance right here on the side of my hand, and so I'm going to start off right here, and I'm just going to make a nice half circle or a nice curve, and I'm going to pull it this way. As far as this here, again, it's going to turn around inwards. As far as this part here, again, it's going to have that sense of the ovalness. Again, I'm just doing everything very light. Everything you should be able to erase very quickly. Again, as far as like me doing this freehand, that's the best part. You know, I want to problem solve my own issues. I really don't want to trace anything. And if it doesn't come out perfect, it's okay. You know, I think the strength of the drawing is going to be, of course, the shading. You always want to make sure the shading is going to be your strength. As far as the drawing part, we'll try to get as close as possible. One part that looks very strange is this part here. To me, it looks like a little weird because this goes around and then it comes back out, then it goes back in, and this goes back around. Something that's very unexpected. But now that I see it, again, because I did look at it a little bit closer, it's very easy to see the contours, the darkness versus the whiteness. Very easy to see. So again, I'll try to mimic those same shapes or those same curves as I work my way through. So again, this goes around and it goes around through here. As far as how far does it go? Well, according to my crop, that's all I'm going to get. So if this, again, was in the middle, if this is a center somewhere around here, I know here is going to be the other oval, which is this part here. The oval, it goes on the inside. Then I have the part that looks like a button, and it comes over like this. So that fits in here. And as far as the rest, it looks like, there really isn't a whole lot left, as far as me drawing. Is it correct? I think it's correct for now. When I come back, before I actually start shading, I'll look at it twice, three more times, just to make sure that it seems like it's speaking well to me, and it's not really, again, a lot of this is very subliminal. Subliminal meaning that, it's not critical information. It doesn't seem to be critical in the sense where I absolutely am sure it's right or wrong. A lot of it's kind of suggestive, like it looks okay, but At the same time, you can't really prove if something's slightly wrong or it is correct. But again, we're going to take it as is, and then from there we'll just kind of keep adding on to it, or subtract, or add a little bit more. So again, if I had to imagine this, coming from the center, I say, well, this is the middle, and I'm going to go a little bit here and a little bit there. Is that wide enough? So. Make it a little bit wider. But again, I'm drawing very light. So if I do need to make the corrections, I will go back and I'll clean it up. As far as this part here, again, drawing the ellipse would be, well, a little bit lower. Somewhere around there. So again, I already have that nice little curve. This part goes into that negative space in there. As far as this part here, it has to go around. So, this is the part that I'm working on right now. As far as the rest of it, it's going to keep on going. This part's going to go around this way. It has a double line up here. As far as this part here, when I do look at it, it should start about right here. This part starts about right here, and it's going to go, how wide? Well, it seems like about the same width. So if I were to go all the way across, so again, just look at things as things exist, look at things and see if things make sense. So from here, I have to, of course, curve around and eventually come back this way. So the curve that I drew here, I would like to have that curve again, somewhere around there. And of course, from here, kind of work my way back behind the cylinder, which is this one here, these two lines. So that's pretty much where I'm at on this. Let's see. So from here, I'll have multiples. I'll have one this way, one this way. Of course, I'll clean them up as I go around, and a little bit more here. As far as the little hole, again, that little hole is somewhere around here. Somewhere around there. As far as the line, the crease of the door, again, it's not vertical. It moves slightly inwards. And of course, it has all this metal sticking out somewhere around here. And some multiple lines here. And it cuts out through here. I'll have a little bit down here too, which is great. Now you can kind of see how it kind of swoops through here. Again, as far as when I do look at it again, more than likely I'm going to like some parts. But again, there is always a little distortion to things. The more angle you have of things, the more you feel like you can kind of get away with things, because again, the idea of perspective. Like when something moves forward, it seems, of course, to distort. So that's a nice thing that you can always, of course, suggest that, if it doesn't look accurate, it's because of distortion. It's kind of like getting an out when maybe you should have been a little bit more observant. But again, you can get away with a lot of things when you distort things. But again, when you do distort things, it does make them look more creative. It does make it look more dynamic, and your eye, or anyone's eye, is a little bit more receptive. So again, this assignment by subject alone, it seems a little bit boring, but at the same time, it's very demanding. It's very, very demanding that you, of course, stay with the concentration as far as what you're trying to draw, and of course, all the little details, all the information is still yet to come. So as far as the drawing, it would not take very long. I'd say maybe like a good 20 minutes dedicated to the drawing part. Just get your contours down, clean them up once or twice, 3 times, until you feel like I'm pretty much there. And then, of course, just pick a place where you can start doing your transitioning. So I said, I really like this little spot here. I'm going to go ahead and start right there. So that's a space you want to start off with, Make sure you put some paper underneath your drawing hand, because you are going to put your hand and your arm on top. Make sure that you keep it very clean. There's nothing, everyone has, of course, work, that you turn in. You always want to make sure that it looks very, very professional, very, very clean. And of course, the medium itself, the graphite, seems like sometimes you wouldn't think it, but it's just floating there on the surface. So as your hand drags across it, it's going to pick it all up. So make sure that you do put paper underneath your drawing hand so you don't smudge it. Because sometimes you may have really nice work, but the presentation is poor. You know, it's just like when the chefs, you know, or people that call themselves chefs, you know, they're preparing food and they come back and they clean up the plate, even though, of course, they poured the food, but anything will distract from the presentation. So again, they do wipe off the edges of the plate, so they'll maximize, you know, the experience. You know, they don't want to present something a little messy, even though, of course, it's just food. You know, you just kind of just dripped it in there. But again, the presentation doesn't matter. So make sure you always do that, and you'll always be the better for it. So as far as the shading part, I'm always looking back and forth. I do notice that there's a little bit of light here and a little bit, you know, there's a little bit of things I possibly am missing a little bit. But as far as within your pencil, always try to keep a fine point and then a little bit more a rounded point. The rounded point's a little bit better for smoother, rounded shading that, of course, you want to make sure that it has minimal like textures, like scratches. So that would work very, very well. As far as when you do look at this, I do see like a mid shade here, a little mid shade here, a little bit of mid shade there. So again, I'm going to be looking for all those nice things. But of course, I see a lot of transitioning here too. The transitioning actually moves into the actual rounded part of the handle. So this shading here is going to move forward more so than move back into the cylinder. So again, this assignment, again, it's called the room crop drawing. Again, anywhere within a room that would be best as something that's a part of the room, let alone something that, you know, like a bottle that you put on the table, or, you know, something that, you know, movable things, like someone's drawing bananas. Is that a room crop drawing? So no, because again, you want to draw something that's a permanent part of the room. And that's what makes it more challenging, because it's a fixture. You know, most people wouldn't think that it's worthy of making it into a work of art. So again, the way you approach it, you know, with your use of perspective, with your, of course, angles and all this and that, you know, hopefully you can find something that is, you know, doable, and also, of course, something that has a really nice aesthetic where it looks pleasing to the eye. Because again, you took something very ordinary, and of course, you're trying to elevate it by drawing it, depicting it, scaling it, and of course, adding the shading, and eventually developing the texture. As far as texture itself, we haven't talked about it very, very much, but the texture is going to be applied, again, with little dots, with little lines. Can you draw texture? Well, you make people believe they're looking at texture. So again, the texture here of chip paint, as you can see already, so you can already tell how you would do it. Of course, it almost seems like it has defined spaces. And then from here, of course, you can apply some little different shades. Some shades a little bit darker, some a little bit lighter, some a little bit more medium, and that'll, of course, take care of it. But sometimes you may incorporate little dots, you know, maybe if it is something like dust, or if it has little scratches, as if metal. Definitely it seems like it has lines that move across, but again, they're parallel to the outer edges of the handle, or the knob. So I've already started some of that too. But I would recommend for you guys to do all the shading first to establish your form, and then come back. If you do need to do some erasing, if you do need to come back and add some lines or little strokes to create that look of texture, then that's what I would want you to do. So again, this is called room crop drawing. And again, it's a very, very loose tutorial that I gave you. I think everyone can possibly do something just by looking at the different photographs, the different pictures. You know, definitely you can see how each one would be unique, you know. So again, as far as this one, is this a part of the room? Says no, you drew something that was inside the room that's not really a part of the room. But again, this is something that was always there. It's always there in that corner of the room. So I put it in there that you could stretch it. Maybe you don't, again, if you don't feel very, very confident in what you're drawing, like again, this is a lamp fixture, so that is a part of the room. Not necessarily this one so much, but like I said, it's always there in a corner. But again, you can kind of move it in different directions. I just don't want you to create a still life. And of course, draw a still life. But again, if that's what you really want to do, well, then make it still life. But again, make it more home related and not just, you know, maybe you do have a lot of like little garbage or chip bags or whatever. So can I draw chip bags? Well, do what you want, you know. But again, the creative eye is going to, of course, be significant within this drawing. So again, you can take the most common things and just turn them around and say, this is it. This is it right here, you know. But again, this is a little rough drawing, a little sketch. when I do scale it out, you're going to see that, you know, like as far as right now, if I had to, of course, compare the size of my hand to the knob, you know, it's about the right size. Maybe the knob should be a little smaller. But definitely, again, when I draw this in full scale, this is going to be twice the size. And that's perfect. That's the way it should be for this assignment. So again, I want you guys to start on this as soon as you can. Most of you guys did take material home with you. So if you already have it at home, go ahead and get started. That way, you know, you're not falling behind. As far as another assignment you guys should be working on, of course, is your creative shape and form drawing. The creative shape and form drawing is anything you want it to be. And again, you're using shapes and forms to draw anything you want to. So again, if it was like if I say I want to draw like look at this little screensaver, this idea of this little dragon. This is my daughter's phone. But again, if you wanted to draw a dragon, is that dragon possible? I mean, I would say yes, very, very easily yes. You know, even though you can't even see it, you know, I can't see it. No, I can't really either. But it gives me an idea. Just by looking at it, I see a circle. And then the back of the head, triangular, maybe a little bit of a hook. And the front, something also triangular. And as far as the neck, you know, again, cylinderish. And so, can you do something with that? So, yeah, I mean, I can already see it, you know. So again, this would be the eye. Maybe it only has one eye. Maybe it has more eyes. But as far as everything else, well, I would say this is a jaw. And I'm going to give it a little bit of an irregular shape. This will be the nose. Maybe give it a little bit of a hook at the very, very end. As far as the nostril, I'll draw it there. As far as the other eye, I'll say it has a little bit of an up shape there. And this is going to be the little fin that, you know, like those pterodactyls, they use it for navigation. So from here, again, maybe I'll change the shape of it just a little bit, but now it's starting to have some form. Once I start putting in my shading, that's where the money is. Remember, you should be very, very excited about doing the shading because that's where it's going to happen for you. As far as the eye, you know, maybe I'll get to that at the very, very end. But I really want to shade around the eye to create a little bit more contrast. So how would you know everything else? Well, just like everyone, we all have, of course, like a part over the eye, like a little bit of the bone. We'll try to keep that a little bit lighter here. And I'll shade around it very, very softly. Because unless it's a very, very dark space, that's where you want to put a little bit more emphasis there. So like, again, this would be underneath, so I'll go a little bit darker. And from here, I'll go a little bit lighter. Again, as if it's a cylinder. And I'm going to splash it over this way. As far as teeth, you can add little details, like maybe like some little teeth or something. But definitely if there's a nostril on that side, we're going to do one over here. Definitely on this side. And from here, we'll just kind of push over. We can treat this a little bit like the ribbon, where a little bit darker here, and then a little bit darker there, and then a little bit darker there. And from here, we just keep pushing the shading. Again, a lot of this is going to be prior knowledge as to, do you have experience in drawing? Do you have experience with trying to be creative? So I don't have any of those. But again, most of you guys are, of course, art major, art minor. You know, you should have tons and tons of experience. Maybe not necessarily, of course, in drawing. Maybe you were not pushed in drawing. But again, that is the goal, that you should be pushed very, very hard to be able to see what you're capable of. And again, I'm trying, of course, being very, very lenient with almost everyone. But again, it's not to your gain, you know, for your instructors to treat you with a sense of, I guess, too much leniency, because then you'll really you'll never really know your own potential if you're never really pushed. So again, you do want to suffer a little bit. Suffering, of course, would be, I don't get to, you know, do my gaming. I don't get to go out, or I have to stay in. You know, sometimes that seems like punishment, but it shouldn't. So again, as far as the shading, I'm using a lot of circular motion. I'm just trying to get rid of most of the white. I'm also, of course, trying to incorporate a little transition so I can start having some more movement. I'm going to say this is the back of the mouth right here. But you can see where it's going to go. You know, you can already say, well, kind of create a little bit of a division in the middle. And this part's going to go upwards. And then, you know, just like a lizard, you know, I'm going to go around to highlight this part here. go a little bit forward. But again, everything's done very, very softly, very, very light. A lot of soft circular motion. So again, it's very, very important for us to hold the pencil with our fingertips so you can maximize sensitivity of pencil. I'm very happy that most of you are buying more materials, and I know that you can buy all kinds of pencils. But again, I would ask people to learn how to use one. That way, maximize your ability, and not, of course, lean on pencils. It's like people that buy all of these brushes and say, that's fine, you can buy all the brushes, you can buy all the paints that you want, but you'll be much better, much stronger if you just use red, yellow, blue. And then, of course, as far as your brushes, get a few brushes and learn how to maximize that. And eventually, when you start, of course, understanding the basics, you can always, of course, move on and purchase more materials. But you'll always be the better for learning how to use the minimum and stretching it out to its maximum. Now here we can add some little spines. As far as the eye, I'm just going to put a little bit of a highlight. I'm going to shade the inside a little bit and fade it down. But again, as far as what I did, again, it was just a simple shape. And some of you guys want to be game designers. Some of you want to do something with art therapy. Some people want to be teachers. Again, you want to be excellent at anything you do. You want to be super confident. You want to have a sense of play. I'm going to draw another one of these little fins on the other side. So, I guess they're more like big ears. I'm going to transition this one out to make it seem like as if it's on the other side. Then I can add scaling. Scaling would be done in like little circles to kind of create a very, very rough but simple texture. But again, this is called the creative shape and form drawing. And again, you can do anything you want to with these shapes and forms. It kind of gives you a concept. But again, I was looking at a photograph. Same thing if I looked at a photograph of a car, if I looked at a photograph of a person, a woman, a hand, or anything, I look at it as a shape or a form. So anything you want to draw, again, you can use your own creativity, infinite. But also, of course, you can just use a photograph. You're looking at a photograph of anything. You can just look at that photograph and you say, okay, there's a sphere, there's a cylinder, there's a cone, there's a cube. And from there, just adjust the angles. And you're getting at least to 80% of it. And then from there, you kind of fill in the gaps. I had like 99% gaps because I couldn't see anything. Because I drew this from this little shape that's right there. So that's where it came from. And it looks like that. This part's a little bit longer. Maybe the dragon's looking this way, not looking forward. But I went with what I thought it was. And then from there, of course, the imagination comes in. As to where would you shade, where would you do this and that. I just say, as long as it has transitions, as long as it has variety, as long as the shading looks smooth, which is, again, is the criteria of what I've been teaching you guys from what we've been doing. You want to make sure that the shading is going to amplify your work and not drag it down into the dirt. Dragging it down to the dirt is because it looks too sloppy. The shading, again, is very, very one-dimensional, which you kind of giving me the same thing over and over again. Your transitions are not moving. So again, that's why it's very, very important. It's very, very critical for your technique to be your strength, because drawing and creativity may not be your strength, but at least the shading is good. So definitely, like if I'm listening to opera, I don't understand what she's saying, but it sounds real good, so it's the same thing, I really don't know what you're drawing. I really don't care for what you're drawing, but the shading's really nice, and I can appreciate it at least at that level. And again, it doesn't really matter what you really drew. It's really the presentation. The presentation's really nice. So again, I'm going to leave that for you guys so you guys can work on that too. So again, if you're those of you guys that are art majors and minors, be excellent. Be excellent at what you do. Keep practicing, and I'll always be very receptive. And if you're doing it for points, well, I'll give you all the points. But, I don't really, don't do it for the points. Do it for your own growth, because finally someone's asking you to do something that you've always said that you wanted to do. So now you have the audience and the expectation is there. So you should be very, very excited. Okay. So make sure, think about that room crop drawing. If you're able to start it, go ahead and start it. Make sure that your dynamic shape and form drawing, the creative one, has a sense of composition. It has a sense of this. It has a sense of that. But again, it's either based off a picture that you, of course, broke down to shapes and forms. And, of course, you reconverted it into something that you saw there. But it should have a really nice sense of forms. Or it could be more creative. It's up to you. So again, this is a very playful drawing. It's very, very limitless, and you can pretty much treat it any way that you want to. But again, it is based off shapes and forms. The sphere, the cylinder, the cone, the cube, and that is the basis. And then from there, of course, you tweak it, you adjust it, and you transform it and shade it to its most potential. Okay? Well, I'll see you guys very, very soon. Please make sure that you spend as much time as you possibly can working on your sketchbook, working on your drawings, and having tremendous fun. Thank you.